978radio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson. You're watching the 505 on Racing Show. Welcome. I'd like to say Long Island traffic is a nightmare. Now, I'll tell you what, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but Sunrise Highway turns to one lane because of whatever, and it's not moving, so I get off. For those of you on Long Island, there's only like 3 east-west roads. So now I get off, and it goes down to Montauk Highway, which is the Sunrise Highway alternative, because Montauk is 27A and Sunrise is 27. And I shoot down there. The road's closed in like just east of where I got on for an accident investigation. Closed. Just closed. They just closed the main highway for an investigation. They take us through this neighborhood through, not such a good neighborhood, but it's a neighborhood nonetheless. And here we are. So, welcome. welcome. It's all good. Everything's good. It's good. You got to keep smiling. All right. Nice weekend of racing. There's some good stuff going on at Kansas. And, they didn't seem to have the traffic problems in the Cup Series leaving the event at Kansas because there was nobody there. I don't understand. I was talking to a buddy of mine today about Dover, and he said that even though the grandstands had a few more people than they have in past years, there's still a lot of empty seats. Now, why is that? Who could explain that? I think part of the problem is the gouging that goes on at these events, that these hotels charge. And I'll tell you what, I wasn't going to talk about this till later, but these hotels, there's a cup event. Let's quadruple the cost of our room. And people can't afford that. It's bad enough that the ticket prices to go to some of these places. I mean, my Daytona package, which I stopped renewing a few years back, actually a couple years back, my Daytona package, the package was $1,000, $980, because you had to buy a package, which I didn't think it was fair because, you know, Joe race fan could show up on race day and just buy one ticket if he wanted to. And because nobody's there, they could get a pretty good, decent seat. So I don't want to blame NASCAR for it because it's not NASCAR's fault, but NASCAR owns these facilities under a different corporation called International Speedway Corp. They need to take a look at these things. They need to go to the local Chamber of Commerce and say, hey, don't gouge our fans. And at the same time, they need to lower the ticket prices of these events because I'll tell you what, you know, to pay $300 and $400 for a seat, you know, it's just not right. And what has happened is the cost of the seats keep going up and going up and going up and going up and going up, and people were paying. Finally, people are saying, I'm not paying anymore. That's why you see these banners covering whole entire sections, even though it's advertising. And talking to a track operator who runs a track that has Sprint Cup and Same World Trucks and whatnot, said to me that the banners covering those seats, he gets more for that advertising section than he would have if he would have sold out. So revenue-wise, the track operator's not losing anything because they're selling those spots. Put the banners, the companies who could afford to do that. And what's happening to racing is the same thing that's happening to hockey, to baseball, to football. Joe fan can't just go to the races anymore. It's all corporate-driven. Corporate is buying the seats. Corporate is giving them out as gifts or whatnot and giving them to their employees. And if the seats aren't used, it's still sold. I watch, I'm a Yankee fan. I watch the Yankee games. And I see the whole lower tier is half full. or half empty, depending on how you look at it. And they announced their attendance as sold out. Why? Because those tickets are paid for. That's what's happening. And Kevin, I'll tell you what, I have to agree with you on that one. Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed. If you take some of the TV coverage away, then people have no choice but to go see these events live. Yeah, I know it's a $1 billion deal that NASCAR got with TV, and hopefully it's being distributed equitably. But here's what happens. I know a guy who drove all the way to Daytona to go to the Daytona 500. He's sitting there watching the event, or trying to anyway. He didn't have the best seats in the place because he just didn't, for whatever reason. First time there, you don't know what this section is, that section is, whatever. And you don't know the difference between a box seat, a tower seat, and whatnot. And you think you have a good seat because you just paid $200 for it, and you find out it's really not a good seat. He went back to the hotel and watched the race. He went back to the hotel. So it's something that needs to be looked at. I know sometimes that NASCAR is critical of some of the things I say, but you know what? I've been going to big-time races for close to 20 years now. And I've been all over this country, Sprint Cup, for Nationwide, for Truck Series, and it's just not what it used to be. And then people are going to tell me, well, Joe, nothing's what it used to be. And you're right. But here's a sport that was built on the moms and the pops and the Joes and the Marys and the Sallys and the Henrys that went to these events, and they saved up all year long maybe to go to that one event because that's what they did. Or you had the group of people that followed the races. They're gone. They've been priced right out of the business, right out of being a fan. And what has happened is it's now I call it the trickle-down effect. It's trickled down to the weekly racing series because the weekly racing series people are saying, hey, you know what? We could raise our ticket prices too. And now they've kind of priced themselves out of it where a family of 4 can't afford to go to the local racetrack. And I'm not just talking about here in the Northeast. I'm talking about everywhere. Yeah, and then people are going to tell me, yeah, down at Bowman Gray, the place is packed and there's 8,500 people. You know what? There's nothing else to do there. They look forward to that. That's what they do. It's racing or football, believe it or not. And that's why that place is packed. And they're only charging $10 to get in because people aren't making in that surrounding area in North Carolina. They're not making the same salaries as the people, like, let's say, in New York or Connecticut or even New Jersey. The area that we reach here. I mean, we reach the whole world, but racetracks that we talk about a lot. So with that being said, they need to take a look at this. When I say they, International Speedway Co-op, Speedway Motorsports, they need to take a look at this. And one of the things that Clay Campbell did when he was, when he owned Martinsville Speedway and sold to International Speedway Co-op, and they kept him on as the president of that Speedway, managing director, he got together with the Chambers of Commerce and the surrounding area and the hotel operators and the restaurants and said, don't gouge my fans. And they have. It's just one of those things. It's very frustrating and it's frustrating. And like the traffic that I dealt with tonight was like coming out of a Sprint Cup race where there's one road in and one road out. The one road in tonight was closed. So anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the NASCAR Whelan Modified Tour and the NASCAR Whelan Southern Modified Tour.
Hey, this is Chris Less Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or the flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural
And organic.
but strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
InRavio.com wants you. InRavio provides the best in TV, film, post-production, and so much more. And we're growing. Right now, we're looking for a team of pros that can join us. So what are you waiting for? We need show hosts, production crew, marketing gurus, sales experts, audio engineers, lighting, visual effects, and camera crews. We want you. Go to InRavio.com/join the team. For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. InRavio.com.
Hey, we're back. We're back. Anyway, a little get well wishes to George Brunhutzel III, who was injured in a wreck at Caraway Speedway this past weekend on the last lap of the race in the NASCAR Whelan Modified, Southern Modified Tour event. Home, he's resting, he's pretty doggone sore, but it looked worse than it ended up being. So our prayers go out to GB3, as he's known, get well real soon, and hopefully he'll be back in the seat and then get the car repaired, or he finds a ride at the next event, which is in Charlotte next week. So anyway, Southern Modified Tour. I was in Caraway. And we had Danny Bond was the winner from the pole. Brian Lofton second. Kyle Ibersol was third. Andy Seiss was fourth. Then we have Luke Fleming in fifth. Spencer Davis, the rookie, in sixth. J.R. Bertuccio of Long Island in seventh. Daniel Speedy in eighth. Mike Norman in ninth, and Bobby Meismer Jr. in 10th. The way the Southern Modified Tour points look, with one race to go, Andy Seiss is the leader over George Brunhouse III, who's 17 points back, with Burt Myers in third, Danny Bond fourth, J.R. Bertuccio fifth, Kyle Ibersola sixth, Luke Fleming seventh in the points, Spencer Davis eighth, Gary Putnam ninth, and Jason Myers in 10th. The Rookie of the Year tally so far in the NASCAR Whelan Modified Southern Tour, Spencer Davis has a slim 2-point lead over Ryan Osborne, with Bobby Meeser 6 points back. Now, the way those points work, the Rookie of the Year points, and I believe it's 10 points for the highest finishing rookie, and 9 for the second, 8, and all the way down the line. So this Rookie of the Year challenge is going to be decided at the last event, unlike the Northern Modified Tour, where Timmy Salamino unofficially has been named the Rookie of the Year in the NASCAR Whelan Modified Tour here up north. Congratulations to Timmy. And, looking at the Southern Modified Tour stuff that's going on, when you look at some of the guys in the top 5, 3 of the top 5 in the NASCAR points in the Southern Modified Tour are from the north. Andy Seiss up in the New England area, New Hampshire, and we have George Brunhouse III, a Long Islander, and J.R. Bertuccio, in 5th in points, another Long Islander. And, a lot was said about J.R. over the years and how he can only run at Riverhead and because of all the favoritism that was going on. Here's a kid that, he's not a kid anymore, he's a grown man, actually, who's changed his life, turned himself around. He's racing on this Southern Tour, and he took his lumps in the beginning, but he's a guy to reckon with. He's got a couple of wins this year, and the top 5 in points is pretty doggone awesome. So my hat's off to JR and the whole Bertuccio Motorsports, because they're a bunch of great guys. They work hard, they play hard, and I see this kid. I don't see him moving up the ranks as I did maybe 10 years ago. But I'll tell you what, he's found a home down in the South, and they're making it happen. So, and my hat's off. A lot of people don't agree with me on that one, but it's okay. The Whelan Modified Tour will be in Thompson, not this weekend, the weekend after, for the annual Thompson World Series. And it's kind of tight there a little bit. I mean, Doug Colby got a little bit of a cushion after the event at Stafford. He's sitting in top of the points, and TC, Ted Christopher, just jumped over Justin Bonsignor, with TC in second, Justin third, and Ronnie Silk fourth in points, Bobby Santo fifth in points, Ryan Priest sixth in points, Woody Pitcat then is seventh, Eric Goodale eighth, Timmy Salamino ninth in points, and Patrick Emmerling 10th in points. Like I said, it's unofficial until the last event, but Timmy Salamino will clinch the Rookie of the Year honors. I believe he just has to start the race, and he will become the Rookie of the Year. Modified Tour. Last Monday I had some business to take care of, and unfortunately we couldn't be on. But the Modified Tour at the fall final at Stafford Motor Speedway in Stafford Springs, Connecticut, had 22 cars show up. This was an event over the years that more cars went home as non-qualifiers than what started the race. What's the problem here? Where were the cars? Where are the cars? People are going to say, it's the economy, it's the travel, it's this, it's the that. Well, you know what? I don't buy that, folks. Because you know why I don't buy it? Because the Valenti Modified Racing Series, which I don't really talk about much here on this show, and maybe I should, is getting more cars, and their purse is 25% less. Now people are going to say, well, the cost to run that series is less. Well, yeah, because they control, there's a tire rule. You can only buy so many. I believe the way it works is you can buy 4, period, the end. And you get a flat or something, too bad, so sad. Hopefully you have some saved up from an old event. You can't go in there and order 10 tires or 20 tires and then take the best, set that you got. Here's your tires, go make it happen. And people say, well, they don't have all the safety equipment. Well, let me tell you something. I kind of cringe when I hear people say that, because the cars are exactly the same, other than that new seat that the Northern Tour has. But other than that, they're basically exactly the same. There's an intrusion plate on the roof. There's some other little same thing, but they're still wearing the same fire suit, the same shoes, gloves, helmets, the Hans device, the fire bottles, and all that kind of nonsense. Where the cost savings comes into play is your pit road stuff. The guys on pit road don't have to have all the equipment because there is no pitting in the MRS event. Get back to the modified tour. Has NASCAR pushed some teams out of business? I think they have. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I don't think that people that sit around the table and discuss these things have a firm grip on what goes on in the Northern Tour, or the Southern Tour for that matter. And it's not their fault. They need to go to more races. They need to talk to some of the car owners. And that was one of the things that former series director Ed Cox would do. He talked to the owners. Guys, gals, listen, this is what we got going. We'll get some feedback. And he'd bring that feedback back to the round table. And if he thought something was ridiculous, he put his neck on the line and said so. A lot of the stuff that happens on the Whelan Modified Tour, and again, I'm not trying to badmouth the series because it's a good series and NASCAR works really hard, and I know there's some people that think they don't, to put a good show on. But they've overruled, when I say over, not overruled, but they've overruled the series. They're not Sprint Cup cars, and these teams are working guys that work Monday through Friday. Some work weekends, some work nights, some work morning, but they're working guys, and they can't take off to go to these events. And back when the events were more local to the Northeast, maybe we shoot down to Martinsville, shoot down to Virginia, that was like our Daytona 500 type of thing. But the teams went, and there weren't midweek shows other than, Thompson, we ran Thursday, Stafford, we might run on Friday night. When you got to go to Bristol, and you got to leave Monday, and you race Thursday, and you come home Friday, that's a whole week. New Hampshire, the same deal. You go up Wednesday night, Thursday, you do your stuff. Friday, do maybe some more stuff. Saturday, you race. You're taking like 3-4 days off from work. These guys can't afford to do that. When I say the guys, not the drivers, not the car owners, the crews that make this happen. And I talk to a lot of drivers, a lot of modified guys who run at their weekly track, and they tell me, I'd really love to run the tour, but I can't bring a crew up there. I can't race without a crew. My guys work. And that's why they had 22 cars at Stafford Motor Speedway for the fall final. I don't anticipate too many more showing up for the World Series of Thompson. Maybe 24, 25, when it all is said and done. Because who's going to go to this event? Because you got to understand, sponsorship money is starting to run out. Teams are sitting back and saying, let's see, what are we going to gain by going to that last event? Anybody in the top 20 in points is going to show up. Anybody who has a shot or feels they have a shot at the top 20 in points is going to show up. But if a guy looks and says, even if I win, I won't make the top 20, why do I want to spend all that money to go to this event? And that's what's going to happen. I think there needs to be a wholesale change in the way some of these touring series are run and how things are dictated to the teams. I really feel that the owners need to sit down and be listened to. I think the track operators have every right to be upset, as Mark Arute was very upset at the car count at Stafford for his event, 22 cars. He was very upset about that. And although I didn't get a chance to go talk to him about it, I heard him say things to people that he was not pleased with the car count. And what happens is, when that happens is, now they're going to sit down and start trying to do next year's schedule. And mark my words, you're going to see lower purses at Stafford and maybe only 3 events. Just something that, I'm not saying that the badmouth NASCAR. Please don't take that the wrong way, because I'm not. NASCAR was very, very good to me, especially back in '96. And the 18 years I spent as an official, for the most part, was a good time. So I don't know. So anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back. We'll talk about what went on in Kansas this this past weekend. We'll be back.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Hey, this is Chris and Les Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. InRavio.com wants you. InRavio provides the best in TV, film, post-production, and so much more. And we're growing. Right now, we're looking for a team of pros that can join us. So what are you waiting for? We need show hosts, production crew, marketing gurus, sales experts, audio engineers, lighting, visual effects, and camera crews. We want you. Go to InRavio.com/join the team.
back. We are back. Oh, well, I'm having a fun time tonight. It's all good. We're having fun. Anyway, let's see. The big three, the trucks were off. Campbell World Truck Series was off. They have a wacky schedule. But anyway, they were off. Their next event will be Saturday, October 18th at Talladega. And it's always interesting to see the trucks run at Talladega. Everybody talks about the big one in the Cup race. The truck guys just seem to. I just don't think they're aerodynamically set up to race a super speedway. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But I think they should be at tracks at 3/4 of a mile and under. Maybe once in a while send them to a mile and a half, but I don't think the truck should be racing at Daytona or Talladega. Just my thought. Or Atlanta, where you hit speeds of 200 miles an hour. But anyway, it's all good. All right, Nationwide. I didn't watch the Nationwide race, but I got the results. Kyle Busch was the winner, with Kevin Harvick second. Ryan Blaney was third. Paul Menard was fourth. Ty Dillon was fifth from the pole. Matt Kenseth was sixth. Elliott Sadler seventh. Trevor Bayne was eighth. Brian Scott ninth, and Chase Elliott rounded out the top 10. Way the points are looking at. Chase Elliott is atop the leaderboard with Reagan Smith second, Ty Dillon third, Brian Scott is fourth. Elliott Sadler fifth in points, Trevor Bayne sixth, Chris Buescher in seventh, Brendan Gaughan eighth, Ryan Reed ninth, and James Buescher rounding out the top 10. In the Cup Series, yes, the Cup Series. I watched that race. I actually watched it. In between watching the Jets get tromped again, it was easy to switch back and forth because it was more fourth than back. But anyway, Kansas. Joey Logano was the winner. Kyle Larson second. I'll tell you what, this kid, man, this kid's going, he's already at the top when I say going places. He's going to be a force to reckon with it, as he already is. Kyle Busch third. Martin Truex Jr. fourth. Carl Edwards was fifth. Ryan Newman sixth. Denny Hamlin seventh. Austin Dillon was eighth. Paul Menard ninth. Brian Vickers rounded out the top 10. Kevin Harvick at the pole finished 12th. The points, I'll tell you what, a lot of the chase guys that are up there had bad days. So the way the points are looking like now, we got Logano in first, Kyle Busch second, Carl Edwards is third, Ryan Newman fourth, Denny Hamlin is fifth, Kevin Harvick sixth, Matt Kenseth is seventh, Jeff Gordon eighth, Casey Kane ninth, Brad Keselowski 10th, Dale Earnhardt Jr. 11th, and Jimmy Johnson the last spot in the next round of the chase going into the contender round. And a lot of people are a little confused on the way this thing works, but it's really not that confusing. Here's how it's going forward. Now they have the top 12 in points. The top 12 in points, their points get reset to 3,000. Then they're going to eliminate 4. There'll be 8 left. Their points will be reset at 5,000. And then when you go to Homestead, there's 4 guys left to battle it out, the championship round. Whoever has the most points win. Now I'm thinking, it's a novel idea. Whoever has the most points win. Why have all of this stuff? Race to 36 events, the guy with the most points at the end is the winner. What's with this chase and resetting points, all this nonsense? I've said this 1,000 times. I understand why NASCAR did this. They needed to create a hub. They needed to create excitement. They needed to get people to say, I'm not going to watch football this Sunday. I'm going to watch the race because it's exciting. There's this new thing going on. But it's not working, guys. Come on. Go to the table and let's fix this. It's not racing. People aren't going to the races. People aren't watching the races. They're still watching football. They're still watching the baseball playoffs. They're still watching the World Series. I just don't know what to say. And then, I look at the 2015 schedule where, you got, of course, Speed Weeks, everything's going to open in Daytona still. When you have the sprint, what used to be called the Bud Shooter, now is the Sprint Unlimited, starting on Valentine's Day. Then the 19 is the Bud Duels, which qualifies for the race other than the front row, which is determined in time trials. Again, I'll never understand why that's done that way. And, of course, February 22nd with the Daytona 500 and ending up in Homestead. Now, scheduling. When you look at scheduling, it's kind of the Sprint Cup Series and the Nationwide and the trucks, it's kind of easy to make this. I mean, it's not easy. I'm sure it's not as easy as it looks. But when you make these schedules, travel isn't not a big deal. I mean, there's nothing for the Sprint Cup guys to go from the East Coast of the United States, go to the West Coast, and then the following week go back to the East Coast. Where years ago, these teams didn't go home and go back to the shops. They made a run. They made a circle around the whole United States. And their first race wasn't the Daytona 500. It wasn't in Daytona years ago. Their first race was in nice weather in California. And then they kind of worked their way to the Daytona 500. Then they worked their way up through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, New York. These guys, I mean, I'm showing my age, but they raced on Long Island. They raced at Isis Speedway. They raced at Bridgehampton. Then they went up to Connecticut. Even went to Thompson. Up through that ranks, up through, back across, upstate New York. These guys didn't go home. I mean, the guys who had money did. You know, they could hop on a plane and get home during the week. But these guys, they just traveled. They just traveled. And then the families loaded up the station wagon or the van or the pickup truck, and they traveled with them. Because this is what they did for a living. And when they got to their local town, they made arrangements and deals to get their cars fixed, get new cars, whatever they needed. It's just become such a big business, such a big, and so like Kevin said, and wow, this is twice I'm agreeing with you, Kevin. NASCAR's all about making money, and you know what? It should be. Being a shareholder, I want to make money. You know, International Speedway Corp. It's a public stock, trades, I believe, on the New York Stock Exchange. You want to make money. You know, you're not doing this for free. But I'm going to say it again, and auto racing is the only entertainment venue where the performers pay to perform. The cost, you know, now that I'm on the other side of the fence, you know, with my team and whatnot, I see what it costs to just attempt to qualify, to have your car inspected, your license fees, your entry fees. Is this putting some of these teams where they don't go to these events? Maybe, but I'm going to go back to the MRS. Yeah, the license is a little bit less and the pit fee, but the pit fees are the same. Whether you go to Thompson, whether you go to Stafford, whether you go to New Hampshire, wherever you go to race, this is what it costs to go. Whether you're in the top division or one of the support divisions. That's what it costs. So, you know, people can't say, well, you know, the cost to go. No, you know, those costs, you got to pay them anyway. Fuel is the same. You don't pay less for fuel because you're an MRS guy. You don't pay less for fuel because you're a weekly guy. The fuel is still going to cost the same. And like I said, now I'm on the other side of the fence, and I'm seeing what these costs, you know, are. You know, I just see what the costs are. And somebody used the R word. Wow, we don't use the R word. But the cost to do this is just insane. And I could tell you, you know, now we're rounding on with the season, and there's one more modified tour race left. To do it right, you need $100,000 to do it right. And if you're in the top 5, top 10, maybe even, maybe $200,000. A car owner told me at the banquet just a couple of years ago, or within the last couple of years, I'll say, so I don't want to put this guy in a spot. It cost him $300,000 to win that championship. And that was everything. Everything except the car and the motor, because he already had that. That's what it cost for fuel, tires, the hauler, fuel, tolls, hotel rooms, food, $300,000. I think when it was all said and done, his return on that was about $120,000. So, you know, you're talking a negative return. Now, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. My races, he heard from a fan the other day that there's this guy who owns a restaurant and a golf course, and he claims the sale is in the hands of the Lord. You know, it's the annual rumors for about this, everybody's local racetrack. It's sold, it's sold, it's sold, it's sold, it's sold. You know, when it's sold, I'm sure there'll be a press release, your local racetrack. There's racetracks all over this country closing. I don't know why people got to be this way. Because I'll tell you what, if I owned a racetrack and had to put up and deal with the negativity that goes on with a weekly racetrack, I'd probably tear it down and put up affordable housing. And I'm being serious. I know probably people are gasping, holding their chest. I can't believe Joe said that. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. When I was a head official at a weekly racetrack, the calls that I used to get, they started at Sunday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I didn't get home till 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes the sun was coming up when I was driving home. I would just put my head on the pillow, the phone would ring, hey, Joe. The negativity was so bad. People were putting stuff on websites about me. They were calling my family, threatening my kids, throwing my kids off the bleachers. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. Somebody threatened to shoot me. Another driver threatened to blow up my house. Another driver's family threw my daughter off the grandstands. Pushed her right off the grandstands onto the ground. She came on a racetrack all cut and bleeding and crying. Is it worth it? These people are animals. And then when the racetrack closes, they're all standing out on the street crying at the gate. Oh, I can't believe they closed this place. You badmouthed the place for 20 freaking years. What do you expect? What do you expect? Now you're going to cry? You're going to cry because it's closed? Maybe if you weren't so negative, and I would say you, my fans in the chat room. I mean, when I say you, it's a rhetorical you. It's you, people that are doing this. And when it closes, you're going to sit there and cry. I don't know. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't know. Anyway, real quick, the NASCAR Weekly All-American Series, the national title went to Anthony Anders. The guy had 51 starts. You take your best 16 races. Guy has 51 starts with 30 wins. Hello, he's going to win. All right. Second place guy, Lee Pulliam, he had 46 starts and he only had 25 wins. And Keith Rocco was third in the national points. He had 46 starts and 16 wins. And like I said, they take your top 16 wins. And the way the points work at it's based on your car count and how many cars start the event, and if there's a bonus if you come from the back. So I think it's a little bit fairer than it was. Anyway, Cup Series, Cup race, Kansas, like I said. Oh, I already talked about that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading my notes here. But again, when you look at these things, when you look at what's going on in racing, whether it's the big tracks, and there's so many big tracks that are just sitting there with weeds growing in between the cracks on the pavement, looking for dates, and you have this International Speedway called Speedway Motorsports getting all the dates. It's, how do you do this? Who do you take a race away from? Do you take a race away from a Martinsville who supported this, the series, the Sprint Cup Series, when it was the old Grand Nationals, from its inception? Do you take a race away from Bristol? Well, how about this? You take a race away from Daytona. You take the July race because it's just too hot. You can't do that. You can't do that. So do you make the season longer? I think the season's long enough, February to November. I mean, the week before Thanksgiving is the last race, basically, and then you have your holidays, and then you're in the, you're back testing in January, and you're racing again in February. What do? You want to make the chase interesting? You have two races the same weekend, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. Sprint Cup East, Sprint Cup West. And the chase is the top 10 in points in each of those series. Then race another 6 races or whatever. You have those 20 guys race. But it's all short track stuff. Short track racing. True racing. Not you just flat-footed around and hold on. Put the race back in the hands of the driver. Get rid of these restrictor plates. Get rid of some of this aero. All right, because make these guys drive the cars. Make them drive the cars. You look at drivers from the 60s and the early 70s, the forearms on these guys and the biceps and triceps and the chests on these guys, because they're muscling these cars and there was no power steering. And now you look at these guys today, and don't get me wrong, I truly respect what these kids do, these young guys. but they're tiny. When I say tiny, they're short, 5'2" to 5'8" maybe. And they're young. And they started in go-karts, and some of them midgets, and a lot of them didn't do the weekly thing. Some did, a lot of them didn't. But you have this diversity program where they threw a bunch of people into this program, and they took the best out of that. You know, it's just, I don't know. And if the car's not perfect, they don't want to drive it. And they're making pit stops. They're making adjustments. They're making another pit. You know what? Eliminate pit stops. Eliminate that. It will make it that you can only pit under green. That would change the whole outcome of the race. And get these guys so they could drive these race cars. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people say race car drivers aren't athletes. They are athletes. And I don't think there's, you watch a guy in baseball, he runs from, first to third on a hit into the outfield, and he's huffing and puffing. Hockey, every minute, hockey's a tough sport, don't get me wrong, but every 45 seconds to a minute, they're on the bench and a whole fresh crew comes out. Referees out there all 60 minutes on a hockey game, skating up and down. He's not huffing and puffing, but anyway. Race car drivers are athletes, and I think the race car drivers are the toughest athletes around. The toughest athletes around. I don't know anybody that could sit in 140 degrees for 4 hours making left-hand turns at 180, 190, 200 miles an hour. Or the guys that do this in the weekly series, in their weekly racetracks, when they're doing these 50 lappers and 70 lappers and 75 lappers and 100 lappers and 200 lappers on these small racetracks where you're making a turn every 3 seconds. And you got to muscle around and get beaten and banged and boomed and pushed and shoved. They're athletes. They're athletes. And, I wish people would understand that, And MyRaceNews.com, WJ. A little tidbit I did not know. Jeff Bodine at the first Cup car with power steering. And I can remember talking to guys when I first got into this driving thing back in the mid-'70s. I remember saying to somebody, because the steering was so hard, and I said, well, how come we don't have power steering? And one old timer goes, oh, it takes away power from the motor. Yo, dude, you're going 300 feet on your short track. How much power are you losing? You're going 300 feet, 100 yards. You don't even get to use all the power. Losing power. Yeah, hey, no, here we go. And then I remember telling an old timer because when I first got my first race car, what did I know? I didn't know nothing. I knew nothing. In fact, I knew more about nothing than most guys. And I said to the guy, what gear ratio should we run? And it was only two. My local racetrack, I used to Speedway. There was a 411 or a 456. That's basically 90% of the guys run. How come? I asked the question. Well, stupid me. How come? Well, because. All right, but what about the transmission? No. If you run a 411, you got to have a 14-inch wheel. If you run 456, you have a 15-inch wheel. Yeah, but what about doesn't the transmission have a gear ratio? I remember saying this to a guy. Because I'm in the library looking this stuff up. There was no computers back in the day. I'm in the library. I'm looking it up. I'm like, wait a minute. Now, in a stock Ford LTD comes stock with a 411 rear. Now, but this transmission, this gear ratio, and because we run second gear, now if you multiply the transmission gear ratio by the rear end gear ratio, that gives you final drive. I'm talking about final drive 40 years ago, and people look at me like, I don't know what are you talking about, kid? Go away, you don't know what you're talking about. We do it this way because we always did it this way. Paradigms, that's what they call paradigms. Now, it's good to see that somebody said, you know what, I got to step out of the box here. I'm not losing any power. How much power? On a dyno, and you attach a power steering housing to it, and you turn the wheel with it. How much you lose on a dyno? A couple of horsepower, maybe? Come on. I'm glad somebody was smart and did that. And now everybody has power steering. Oh, everybody. Just like the transmissions. I look at some of the shifters, and I know we're going to wrap up soon. I look at some of these guys, the shifters in these race cars. Do they really need that? You shift on the start, Nah, whatever. Anyway, well, we got to wrap up. Let's go. Coming to the time we got to close up shop here. So with that said, I apologize for the lateness today. Thank the New York State Department of Transportation and the Suffolk County Police for doing accident investigations during rush hour and all of that good stuff. We will be here next week, and I promise you, we'll be here next week. And I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to come on and share and talk racing with us here. And wherever you're going this weekend, please be safe, please be careful, enjoy. Whether you're going to upstate, out west, wherever you're going to racing, just be careful and be safe. And tell somebody you love them. God bless you all, and thanks for your support. Have a good night, folks.
InReview.com. InReview.com. InReview.com.